Welcome to the Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, Christians move a concert. Are we giving in to the mob, or is Bruce Harrell in the Seattle City Council? But before we get to any of that, my friends, time for your daily dose of adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
I thought I couldn't get more mad than I was yesterday when I found out that the illegal alien truck driver who made an illegal U-turn because he couldn't read a sign because he had previously failed English literacy exams that would have given him a truck driver's license, made that U-turn and killed 3 people. I thought I couldn't get more mad than when I found out that this guy had a CDL, a commercial driver's license, from Washington State. Turns out he's got a commercial driver's license from Washington State, from California, from New Mexico. Turns out he's got a few of these. And I was furious, absolutely furious, that during the presser yesterday that Bob Ferguson had, he refused to take any responsibility for the deaths his sanctuary city, sanctuary state, sanctuary county policies have caused. By my math, there are at least 4 dead people we know about because of these policies. The 3 down in Florida and Trooper Christopher Gadd. And when Bob Ferguson was asked about this yesterday by Brandy Cruz, he blew off the question as if it didn't matter. Democrats in Washington, Bob Ferguson, Nick Brown, Jay Inslee, everybody in the legislature who voted for this, they have literal blood on their hands. I thought I couldn't get more mad about this. I really did think that. And then I saw this article. Somebody shared this with me. It's 3 months old. This is from May of this year. And it's from the Oregonian. Now, the Oregonian is a far left rag. It's like saying it's from the Seattle Times, only worse. And I was shocked because I figured the content of this article was something I might find on the Daily Wire, something I might find in Fox News, something I might find from the Post Millennial, something I might find from the Blaze. But no, this is from the Oregonian. So for our Democrat friends out there who always say things like this are a conspiracy, I want you to listen very, very carefully to this article. The gold envelopes were stuffed with wads of cash and couriered via UPS. Inside each $520 to $530 bundle of bills was paper clipped to a sticky note bearing the birth date of a student seeking a commercial driver's license in the state of Washington. Regulators believe the money came from Skyline CDL School, an upstart truck driving academy with branches in Washington and Oregon. They believe it was paid to an independent state tester as part of an alleged bribery scheme to ensure the company's students would fraudulently receive passing grades, according to investigative reports. Investigators last year identified scores of unqualified drivers who received their commercial licenses in Washington after Skyline steered students from its branches in Vancouver and Auburn, hours away, to the contract tester in Arlington, north of Seattle. Some of the individuals licensed never tested at all, according to state records. And 80% of drivers who were later forced to retest failed their exams. What was the most common question I got yesterday when we found out that this guy had been an illegal alien and that he couldn't read English and that he had failed English tests when he was pulled over before? The most common question I got was, how did he pass the test? Are the tests in English? And I assumed, well, when you have sanctuary policies, you just kind of, whatever, just say, okay, here's the test in this language, here's the test in that language. No. According to the Oregonian, who is most definitely not my little black book of the right-wing media conspiracy, according to the Oregonian, these guys were sending out tests to other truck drivers, bribing them with cash to use the name and birth dates of these drivers who never would have passed these tests on their own to get them licensed. You know, Democrats love to say, oh, they just want jobs. We just want them here to work, not at the expense of safety. Aren't the Democrats the ones who always want regulations, more safety? Here, you literally said, forget the safety regulations. Let the guy who can't read English have a commercial driver's license so he can drive a 14-ton bomb, a 14-ton ramming device anywhere he wants. We don't even know how many of these people there are in the U.S. Let's assume for a minute that a whole bunch of these people go, oh, you know what, if they can drive a car, we can teach them to drive a truck, or they'll figure it out. Can you drive a stick shift? Because a lot of these other countries don't have automatics. Well, then we'll figure it out for the truck. It's just bigger. It's just a bigger version. You could drive a truck, right? My old office in Georgetown was back-to-back with a trucking company. And I remember when the trucking company started changing, when all of a sudden you had more and more Somalian truck drivers around. And the Somalian truck drivers didn't care about rules of the road, didn't care about pollution, didn't care about anything, didn't care about their neighbors. So what would happen was they're doing oil changes in the middle of the street and just leaving the junk everywhere. They're running into buildings that I did property management for. They're parking wherever they want. They're putting their rigs wherever they want overnight. They're putting their cars wherever they want. They're jump starting these things in the middle of the street, putting tractor trailers in the middle of the street. It was a nightmare. When I finally lost it, I'm sitting in my office one day and the whole building starts to shake. And we're on a fault line. The whole building is shaking. And I figure it's an earthquake. So I run for the door frame. But it's not stopping. And I said, this is very, very odd. And then I listened closer, and I realized it's not an earthquake. I'm hearing some kind of construction material, some kind of construction mechanism, some kind of machinery. So I go outside, and I realize that this company was digging into the ground and hitting the foundation of my building over and over and over again, to dig a foundation, which wasn't permitted, for an extension they were doing to their building. And they were putting it so close, because you know you need setbacks on these properties. They were putting it so close that they were hitting my building with what they were using to dig the trench to build this foundation, and I absolutely lost it. So after yelling at them and them not stopping, I actually reported them to the city. But then you know what I did? I called Jesse Jones. That's right. I called Jesse Jones of the Problem Solvers or whatever he was with. You know, the guy that Bob Ferguson said, let's hire that media guy to fix all the problems of Washington and hold us accountable. Have we heard from Jesse Jones since he got that gig? Did he even take that gig? Is he doing anything? And Jesse Jones came down with his camera crew and came down to do the story of the poor business owner who's just minding his business and these illegal truckers are messing up his business. And I showed Jesse Jones everything that was going on, showed him what was happening in the streets. I'll never forget, he says this to me afterwards. He says, we'll get these roughnecks for you. And I said, dude, they're Somalian. Story never ran. Because as soon as he found out who they actually were, I guess he wasn't interested anymore. Never saw the story. Maybe his editor said kill it. Maybe it wasn't Jesse Jones. Maybe there was something else more pressing that day, but the story never ran, and they had spent the whole day with me. I got pictures of it at my office. Oh, Jesse Jones is here. This is long before I was in the media world. Oh, look how cool it is. Local celebrity, Jesse Jones. But as soon as they found out that they were Somalians, it wasn't a story anymore. Wanted to get the roughnecks. That's who they wanted to get. Well, now, because of these illegal alien truck drivers who have no business driving trucks. Look, I know how to drive a stick shift. Does not mean I should be driving a truck. You know that big rig truck arcade game where you're driving the semi and you put whatever trailer you want on it? I would crash that thing all the time. I do not think I should be driving a big rig truck. But that's exactly what's happening here. The alleged scheme has gone publicly unreported until now and allowed on an untold number of unqualified drivers to pilot big rigs on the nation's highways and byways, posing a major risk to the general public. According to the Oregonian, it raises fundamental questions about how closely Washington and Oregon regulate one of the most hazardous professions in the country. And if all the drivers who fraudulently passed their exams have been taken off the road. I guarantee you they haven't. Now, this article was written in May. Listen to this quote. That's incredibly dangerous, said Scott Turner, an expert witness and investigator who owns Florida-based truck accident and incident experts. You're putting drivers in the seat of an 80,000-pound commercial vehicle that don't have the requisite experience or training. Turner said he investigates 100 crashes a year, and a large number of them involve drivers without the necessary knowledge or experience behind the wheel. Once licensed, they could be operating anywhere in the United States. And he said you're putting the motoring public in extreme risk. The Oregonian obtained details of Washington's investigation through a public records request. The state took over this investigation. That took state officials almost 2 months to fulfill. Regulators in Oregon only learned key details about it in response to inquiries by the newsroom. The Washington Department of Licensing terminated his contract with independent tester Jason Hodson last year. Officials suspended Skyline's license to operate in the state on December 31st and formally terminated it in March, preventing the company from teaching more students. Washington has now pulled the credentials of 110 drivers tested by Hodson, including 102 from Skyline, yet agency officials admit they can't be sure they identified and acted on all the drivers they suspect may have been involved, including 6 who subsequently relinquished their Washington licenses in exchange for commercial licenses in Oregon. If this is happening in one school, you think it's not happening in other schools? You think it's not happening in other states? Of course it is. Skyline CDL School has not been accused of wrongdoing in Oregon, and its school in Hillsborough is still operating. But the Higher Education Coordinating Commission, which regulates private career schools in the state, fined Skyline $500 in March. Oh, $500. For failing to report the disciplinary actions in Washington. Officials say other enforcement actions may be pending. This is 3 months ago. 3 months ago. So-called CDL mills, trucking schools that churn out large numbers of students with minimal training, are nothing new. The trucking industry is perennially starved for drivers, and such outfits offer low tuition for condensed courses, promise job placement, often cater to specific ethnic groups by offering training in multiple languages. Truckers even have a term for how inexperienced drivers end up on the roads. It's called getting your license out of a Cracker Jack box. In fact, the CDL Skyline School looks like it's somebody's one-level house that looks like if I saw that there was some kind of company there, I wouldn't go in. I would think it was a scam for sure. They've been investigating these issues since July of 2023. This article is very detailed, outlines many concerns, many problems, talks about how many people fail even when the test is in their languages because they don't have the prerequisite experience. They talk about how the Department of Licensing identified 877 drivers purportedly tested between April 2023 and September 15, 2024 from Skyline, 822 of them, and 16% of those drivers were selected for retesting, including 134 Skyline students. Okay, so now you know how this guy got a license. Now, you want to be more mad about this? Somebody, one of our wonderful listeners, forwarded me an email they got today. This is from the Washington State Department of Commerce, which means it's from Washington State, which means it's run by the governor's office, which means it's funded by the legislature. Commerce is accepting applications to support legal aid for indigent immigrants. Commerce is accepting applications from organizations who provide legal representations or referrals to legal representation for low-income people at risk of removal from the United States. So you're giving out grants to organizations that want to stop illegal aliens from getting deported and are willing to pay their legal bills for them. Now, they are offering grants of $300,000 to $600,000 to these organizations to provide legal help so that illegal alien criminals do not get deported from the United States. This, when we have another billion-dollar budget gap because our legislature is so irresponsible. This, when Governor Bob Ferguson signed the largest tax increase in state history because of the last time they had out-of-control budget spending. This is where we're at now, where your tax dollars, hundreds of thousands of them, which means millions of them because we don't know how many grants they gave out. So millions of those dollars are being spent on illegal alien criminals, and they're not being spent on anything that was cut here. Shall we remind everybody that the Democrats cut over $750 million from Medicaid? Shall we remind everybody that they cut drug treatment for babies who are born addicted to drugs? Shall we remind everybody of the dumb things they're spending your money on, like laser hair removal for trans inmates or self-service stations like Jack City Rain? That's what they're spending your money on, in addition to legal help for illegal aliens. Now they have blood on their hands, and we don't even know how many victims of this there are. There could be hundreds. There could be thousands. How many of these accidents involving trucks may have been because of these illegal aliens who were given commercial truck driving licenses? This is Washington State. Now, Murphy asks over on the text line, how did it go through the truck scales getting weighed and having their paperwork checked? Murphy, that's a great question. I don't know because I've never driven a truck and I don't know how weigh stations work, but I will tell you, the guys who work near my office, they're what they call jobbers. Jobbers do short hauls and just drive around our area, so they're not going to weigh stations. They're avoiding the weigh stations. Here's another one from the 253. If the trucker has licenses in 3 states, is he registered to vote in 3 states? Well, let's see. Washington and California both have motor voter laws. I don't know if New Mexico does. Could be entirely possible. Entirely possible. A bunch of people over on the text line want to know if the officials, the politicians, who were the ones who passed this insanity and supported this insanity, could be held legally liable for this. I go back to the answer I give all the time, which is the public duty doctrine, which stops politicians from getting in trouble because of laws that they passed. I know we have it in Seattle. I know we have similar versions of it in Washington State. The question is this, which is gross negligence, is gross negligence included or exempted from something like the public duty doctrine? This is insane, and we don't know how many of them are out there. We don't know how many of these illegal truckers are out there. We don't know how many of these accidents were caused by illegal truckers. We don't know. Because what does the media do anytime there's one of these accidents? Lacey man, Maryland man, never illegal alien from Mexico or from India or from wherever else. We don't know how bad this is. What do we know? Stacks of cash were being mailed to people to take these tests fraudulently. That's what we know. We know that illegal aliens who couldn't pass an English test were still allowed on the road. We know that they were issued licenses fraudulently. We know all this is going on, and we know it was done deliberately. It was done deliberately. Well, you tell everybody you want a living wage for your truck drivers and for your union workers, and you're undercutting them with illegal aliens because they need a job. You guys say you want a higher minimum wage for everybody, but you undercut them with illegal employees because they just need a job. This is the Democrats. They want the illegals here because they want them to vote. That's what they want. They want a block of people who are reliant on the government so that they can say, vote for more government. That is what they want. And how many people have died because of this tragic, failed policy? Dumb policy, and anybody could have seen this coming. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from Ben in SeaTac. Ben, what's up, man?
Hello, are you? Well, it's never going to end unless the Republicans get serious about prosecuting all Democrats. And they are breaking, it's real simple, 8 U.S. Code 1324, and it's pretty plain English. It is a felony to conceal, to shield from detection, to harbor, and to encourage illegal entry in the United States. Every single sanctuary policy, the Democrats, they don't care about losing federal funds because the politicians, they got their money. Pritzker doesn't care if because he's got his mansion. James has got his money. They all got their money. They don't care.
Yeah.
And they need to punish. They need to be, the moment sanctuary city status happens, the very next day you go into the city council and you slap them all with charges, 20-year prison sentence up, and start prosecuting them for this. This is an insurrection. What the Democrats doing?
That's exactly what it is. But it's worse than that. It's worse than that. Forget the insurrection. Forget the voting. Forget all that. They are literally costing lives, and we haven't even gotten into what they've allowed to come across the border in drugs. We haven't even gotten into the rapes. We haven't even gotten into any of the other crimes that are caused by illegal aliens. We have just focused on one tiny sliver, which is the illegal alien truckers. How many other industries do we have problems with that we don't even know about? Think about it in heavy manufacturing, where one of these guys gets hired, isn't trained, pushes the wrong button, and somebody gets crushed. Have we just not had an incident yet? Or has the media not found out about an incident yet? People need to be held accountable for this, Ben. I completely agree. Great call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, so much more to discuss as the show continues, including your calls and your texts. Plus, Christians are now moving their concert out of Cal Anderson Park over to Gasworks Park after threats from Antifa. What's going on? We'll give you the full details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show. Looks like a lot of you want to weigh in on this insane story about the truckers, but we got a text during the break. And I got to say, I love our audience. And you know this person is a longtime listener of the Ari Hoffman Show. Because as soon as I did this story, they went and did the Doge Washington thing. They went to the Washington State checkbook. Now, I haven't verified this myself, but they did send me a screenshot, and it looks legit. They put in Skyline CDL School LLC into the Washington State checkbook, which tracks all the spending by Washington State of your taxpayer money. I just told you a few minutes ago how envelopes of cash were being sent out for people to take these tests for the illegals. Skyline CDL School LLC got $24,585 of your taxpayer money. What was that going towards exactly? Were they just going to the bank and pulling out the cash? They got $24,000 of your money. Kudos to Doge Washington. Great job, guys. Really. 253 for sending that over. Make sure you put in your name and city, because really, that's amazing that you found that. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from Billy in Silverdale. Billy, what's going on?
Hey, Ari. My roommate and cousin-in-law has been a truck driver with a CDL for over 10 years. He just got in his first accident this year in Seattle due to bad weather and poorly managed accident on the scene. And the amount of hoops and legal he had to go through to hire a lawyer and get his record cleared, on top of the random year analysis and all that stuff, has just been detrimental to his take-home pay and his time management. And I love how we hold our truck drivers to such high standards, but I don't know why we turn a blind eye to what's going on with what we're just not talking about. And I would like to see $24,000 of my taxpayer money go towards helping the truck drivers out there that are having a hard time keeping the standard, getting them out of these situations that's not their fault.
Yeah, it happens. Accidents happen. Is there anybody in the audience who hasn't been in some kind of motor vehicle accident? All the more so when you're driving an 18,000-pound bomb on wheels. Things happen. You miss a sign. You accidentally go on the wrong road with an overpass. Things happen. But then there's things that are avoidable, like not giving people licenses who can't read the signs to begin with. Billy, great call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from Warren in Port Townsend. Warren, what's going on?
Yes, Port Townsend, left of Leon Trotsky. In relation to that accident, I put a stopwatch on he initiating that U-turn. I put it at 15 seconds. Was she coming over hill and down at that speed at 15 seconds that she hit the side of the truck? I'm just wondering why it was, with that amount of time, she never saw a billboard-size truck in front of her.
Well, here's
what I'm saying?
Here's another thing. You have to factor in reaction time. Right? I'm with you. I looked at that video. I said, how fast was this person going? I don't want to victim blame.
I ran it 20 times.
Right. I don't want to victim blame here, but at the same time, you don't expect something like that across. But I wonder how fast that person was going. I don't know. The road looked flat in the aftermath video, but were they distracted driving? Was it, oh, crap, I don't know what to do? Was another car coming behind them and they couldn't hit the brakes? Was it a holy cow, what is happening? We don't know, and unfortunately we'll never know because we can't ask them. But, yeah, I kind of wondered that myself.
I was just amazed at the amount of time, and I finally put a stopwatch on it. And I said, how could that be? No reactionary time and a dead center hit at, I would say, initiating the U-turn, clearly visible, the size of a billboard, a rolling bomb, as you say, and she hits the truck dead center.
Yeah, I don't know, man. And plus, here's something else.
I'm not being heartless.
We're
also not being heartless or anything like that.
No, Warren, I get it. But also, we're assuming something else. We're assuming everybody's as good of a driver as you and me, right? What would we do in those situations? And sometimes you just freeze. Also, unfortunately, we'll just never know.
Yeah, I love your good fight. Thank you, Ari, very much.
Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, even more of your calls, more of your texts, because I seem to have struck a nerve, and my phones and texts are lighting up like a Christmas tree. We'll also get to these Seattle stories about what's happening with Cal Anderson Park. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card, plus so much more. Yet another reason I always keep your radio tuned to Talk Radio 570 KVI, left on your dial, always right on the issues. You can also stream us at KVI.com, download the KVI app, and, of course, subscribe on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. Looks like we really struck a nerve with this story about the illegal alien truck driver. So we go back to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Ian in Tacoma. Ian, what's going on, man?
I'm actually happy about this one, Ari, and let me tell you why.
Okay.
CDLs are managed at a federal level.
Mm-hmm.
Interstate commerce falls under federal jurisdiction. If DOJ really wanted to, they could probably use that as an excuse to kick the door open in this state, and maybe, if they can find the right connections, start fixing all the things the Democrats have screwed up in this state.
So are you advocating for there to be a national CDL? I would argue there should be. So let me.
National.
Well, then, how are these guys getting them from states if it's national? They're getting the national one from a state? Is that what you're saying?
It's regulated at a federal level, but issued at a state level.
I see. So if they wanted to, they could say you have to pass this, but then how is the federal government? Are they going to have shops they have to open up everywhere to deal with this? Or is it better to investigate every single driver's license issuing facility, every single Department of Motor Vehicles, every single Department of Licensing, every single one? What would you want to go with?
Honestly, I'm just tired of the way this state's going, and if the Fed's got an excuse to kick down the door here and they actually take a swing at fixing it, I'm all for it at this point. I'm desperate, man.
Isn't it crazy, Ian, that people like you and me are begging for federal intervention because things are so bad on a local level?
Oh, my ancestors are rolling over in their graves.
Yeah, my parents helped get Reagan elected. So I really wonder, I should really ask them how they feel about this. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from Anna and Graham. Anna, what's going on?
Hi, Ari. Everything's good. Just taking a little ride, but I heard you guys talking about the CDL issue and that situation down in Florida, so I thought I would kind of give my 2 cents on it. So my husband, so I understand the CDL license a little bit because my husband has his CDL. He's had it for, I want to say 6 years now, and this is not an easy test. This is a vigorous course that you have to know your truck. You have to understand the happenings of like what you're doing in that vehicle. So my thought, I was thinking about this last night. I'm like, Secretary Duffy, he made a post about Washington State being the one that actually issued the license.
Mm-hmm.
If they did, the DMV is going to have a huge investigation into why that was initiated to begin with. I mean, yes, you have the Keep Washington Working Act here in Washington State that passed in 2019. So obviously that's a major factor. But I mean, it seems like they're going to get investigated for how many other CDLs have been issued to people who are not legal immigrants here in Washington State.
Let me stop you right there for a second, Anna, and I appreciate the insight. Think about this for a second. You have all these illegals running around, and if the feds come a knocking, what's Bob Ferguson going to do? He's going to say, we're not giving you that information. And now the Trump administration will have placed Bob Ferguson even farther on the wrong side of this issue, maybe even with Democrats locally who go, dude, give him the information on the truck drivers so we can avoid this happening again. Because, Anna, I remember there was a commercial there used to be on air. And you're reminding me of it because I hear that little baby in the back seat that you got with you, who I'm sure is getting bigger because I know when they call, the cries get a little deeper. It's adorable. But there's a commercial that I remember where it's a mom in a car full of kids and she's driving. And there is this it's like 3 or 4 tractor trailers all attached together on one truck, and they were trying to say ban these things. I remember this commercial when it came out, and they were trying to show the moms all worried about them, they're dangerous, but it never cited any statistics. But at the same time, I know I drive a little differently when I'm between 2 giant trucks, or I move around so I'm away from the truck, especially if somebody's driving a U-Haul. Okay, I know truck drivers, I know it's not a U-Haul, but when I see a U-Haul, I get the hell out of the way because I know that person definitely doesn't have a CDL. That person is probably somebody who just rented the thing for the day. But at the same time, people drive differently around the trucks. They're a little intimidated around the trucks. And that's the thing is I think this is actually going to resonate with a lot of people and put the Democrats on the wrong side of yet another issue. Anna, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. Take care of that kid. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Jeff in Kent says on the text line, if this trucker case causes the feds to look into our driver's licensing, couldn't open the door to motor vote registration. Exactly. That's exactly what we were just talking about, Jeff. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Ed in Bremerton. Ed, make it quick, buddy. You got a break coming up.
Okay, Ari, great show. In 2016, I moved to the greater Seattle area from out of state. Until the job that I had waiting for me kicked in, I drove for one of the rideshare companies. I won't say which one. So I had to, I had to pass a test in order to drive, and I aced the test except for there was one question that I had no clue what it was. I'd only been here a couple of weeks, and the question was, what is the main way out of Seattle eastbound? I had no clue. But I was the only white guy in the group taking the test, and so everybody else was asking the same question. People giving the test just gave out the answer, I-90.
Yeah, that's, you're reminding me, between you and Anna, you're reminding me of a line from Top Gun. And it's when Maverick and Goose get hauled into Viper's office about the flyby and breaking the hard deck. And Goose says, maybe we could become truck drivers. You still got that ad for truck masters, truck driving school? Now we know how hard it is to become a truck driver. Goose was probably like, oh, this will be easy. We'll become truck drivers. No, it's actually really, really hard to become a truck driver. Ed, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, more of your calls, more of your texts, and I will tell you what's going on in Calais Anderson Park with that Christian concert. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder that you should be checking out the brand new KVI.com, totally redesigned. Plus, you got articles from me, you got movie reviews from Mike, you got all this new content up there, so make sure you're checking out KVI.com. While you're there, sign up to become a KVI insider so you get on our email list for all our events and all the special announcements we send out. So last night, I had heard rumors about this when I was out at the Northwest Sanity Forum. I had heard rumors that there was going to be a resolution to this issue where you had these Christians, the same Christian group and offshoots of it, similar groups, were coming to Cal Anderson Park to have another religious event in Cal Anderson Park at the end of the month. Well, what happened last time in Cal Anderson Park when the Christians had a rock concert? Antifa got mad, and Antifa showed up, and Antifa started throwing bottles of urine and assaulting the people there. And then Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell blamed the Christians, blamed the police. So then the Christians had a protest at Seattle City Hall, and Antifa showed up again and did the same nonsense again. And once again, Bruce Harrell blamed the Christians, which is beyond insane, by the way. So the Mayor Bruce Harrell wants to avoid a similar situation. So you have this group that wants to go to Cal Anderson Park. Well, as soon as it was announced that they were trying to get a permit to go to Cal Anderson Park, and the city's going, I don't know, but we can't deny him a permit because freedom of speech, et cetera, Antifa says, we're going to have a slumber party to fight the fascists and a potluck. We're going to fight them. So the mayor knows he's got an issue on his hands. So apparently what happened was there was a meeting with the mayor, and there was a meeting with Joy Hollingsworth, the Seattle City Council member, according to my sources. And there was a meeting with several other people about trying to move the festival. And it was announced last night by Council Member Rivera that this thing had actually been moved over to Gasworks Park. Now, here's my question for the crowd out there. Do you really think Antifa's not going to show up again? Do you really think they're not going to show up? Because if they show up, what's it going to be? Oh, well, it's not in your historically LGBTQIA park. Instead, it's over here at Gasworks Park. Now, here's the thing, guys. Cal Anderson Park, huge park. Gasworks Park, huge park. You can have it in either one. You can have it in Magnuson. You can have it in Seward Park. You can really have it anywhere. These guys should be allowed to have it wherever. They should. They should be allowed to have it wherever they want to have it. But I want you to listen to what Councilmember Rivera wrote in her announcement about this. I want to let you know about a permanent event that will be taking place at Gasworks Park on August 30th from 5 to 9 p.m., which came to my attention today. The event, a religious concert, is associated with a prayer rally that was held earlier this spring at Cal Anderson Park. As you know, based on First Amendment rights, the city cannot refuse permits based on the content of speech at events. What? Why do you have to send this whole thing out? It sounds like you're apologizing that, oh, because of that pesky First Amendment, the Christians get to go. This is upsetting to me because it is clear that the Seattle City Council, Bruce Harrell, everybody else is siding with Antifa because they know Antifa can't control themselves. They're going to do this. What, you think Antifa and protesters aren't going to show up? It's still a Christian group in Seattle. You're going to have similar problems because odds are they're going to show up again. I hope that the people running the Christian concert got promises from the mayor that if Antifa attacks again, he's going to blame Antifa, not the police and not the Christians this time. I hope you guys got that before you agreed to anything. Because how can you trust Bruce Harrell after everything he's done? We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Jeremy in Tacoma. Jeremy, make it quick, buddy. Got less than a minute.
Yeah, so I've had a CDL since I was 21, and it was in Oregon. And Oregon, every 8 years, you have to renew your license. Well, in Washington, because I have a federal background check I have to do for the hazmat license, it's every 5 years because that's when it expires. So if it goes federal, then maybe it could be a federal regulation instead of each state having their own regulations. And when I renew my license, I have to retake the hazmat test. That's the only test you have to retake with the CDL.
That's good to know. That's something good to keep in mind. So you would be in favor of the feds taking over this whole system?
Yeah, because it's already regulated by the feds with the federal regulations for their truck and tractor with the DOT inspections and stuff like that. So that's already federally
Gotcha.
regulated.
You can make the argument, when I get my boat driver's license, for example, that's by the U.S. Coast Guard, and they give the same test, the same course everywhere. So you should actually argue that the rules of the road should really be the same everywhere because people can drive from state to state to state to state. There may be state-specific things you need to know, how to drive in Manhattan traffic, how to parallel park, though I think that's a useful skill for everybody. But at the same time, it should be a standardized test across the country. Not really sure why it's not. Jeremy, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, more transportation insanity. Washington's first hybrid electric ferry is now out of service. After we blew a gajillion dollars on the thing, Jay Inslee's failure is now complete. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, Corey DeAngelis, school choice advocate, will be telling us how we can fix this problem here in Washington. But before we get to any of that, my friends, we go back to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from Weldon. Excuse me. Hey, is that Weldon in Bremerton? Weldon, what's going on? Weldon, what's going on, man?
You read my text yesterday about answering the question how this guy passed the test.
Well,
I would just like to call and thank. And it turns out there wasn't.
I think we're losing you, Weldon. I think I'm losing you. You're breaking up a little bit with bad reception. But I think what you were saying was I answered your text that you sent in maybe yesterday because we were flooded with texts yesterday about how did people actually pass this CDL test? How were they able to pass this thing? And it looks like now they didn't. It looks like a whole bunch of them actually didn't pass this test. And instead what happened was they were paying people to pass the test for them. That's how they got their CDLs. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from Leonard in Shoreline. Leonard, what's going on?
Hey, Ari, not too much. I have one question for you, and I'm going to have a comment about this. The first question is, though, what part of India did this idiot who killed those people with that 18-wheel truck speak? And secondly, it took about 15 to 20 minutes for officers to find an interpreter for him.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to those questions, sir. One, I don't live in Florida, but two, I can imagine it would probably take longer than that to find an interpreter. But I don't know Indian geography that well, so unfortunately I don't know that, but maybe some Googling online might tell you that. Appreciate the call, though, Leonard. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. In other transportation news, still Washington-focused, do you remember when Bob Ferguson had that big ceremony, posted 4 or 5 videos, took some pictures, some selfies with Jay Inslee about the new Washington State hybrid electric ferry they were so proud of? Yeah, Washington State's first hybrid electric ferry has been pulled from service after less than a month in operation. This was Jay Inslee's big thing, remember? It was, we gotta get rid of the ferries because the ferries put out a lot of carbon pollution, and we gotta get rid of them. Governor, they're diesel-electric ferries, so actually they're not bad for the environment. They're just old. Can we just order new ones? No! Silence, peasants! We're gonna get electric ferries, and they're gonna be great, because they're gonna be good for the environment. Governor, you know that our system is based on not just the hydroelectric dams, but other ones as well, so it's not that great for the environment. Silence! I have my tyrannical rule for 975 days. Build the electric ferries, and we're going to build them in Washington. Governor, none of the shipyards around here can actually handle that job. Oh, that's a problem. Okay, we'll make them hybrid electric. Governor, that's going to be way, way over budget. No, silence! It's the people's money. We can spend it as much as we want because I took it from them. And that's exactly what happened. Yes, that conversation actually happened. That was a real-life recording of Jay Inslee's office. That was. Less than a month after returning to the Washington State Ferries fleet, the converted hybrid electric ferry Wenatchee. Why would you name a ferry after a landlocked part of the state? Okay, that's neither here nor there. Has been sidelined for days due to a mechanical failure that caused the vessel to unexpectedly lose power. The electric ferry lost power. I love this. The Wenatchee, which underwent a 22-month, $133 million conversion from diesel to hybrid electric power, has been running the busy Seattle to Bainbridge Island route since July 24th. But on Friday morning, 2 of its 4 motor drives suddenly went offline as the vessel pulled into Seattle's Coleman Dock, briefly leaving the boat without power. I feel bad for everybody on the ferry. You know, a relative of mine was in town, Mike, last week. I mentioned my wife's cousins were in town. And they said to me, Ari, we feel like going out to some of the islands. Should we take the ferry? We'll just take some bikes with us, right? I go, well, you might have a really long bike ride home if you can't get a ferry back if there's ferry problems. Although the motors restarted within minutes and the vessel was able to move to the Eagle Harbor maintenance facility, crews have been working since then to determine the cause of the malfunction. Dana Warr, a Washington State Ferry spokesperson, told the Seattle Times that technicians found instability in the control system's communication wires, which caused the motors to shut down. They said the issue may only happen at certain speeds or certain operating conditions, noting that isolating the problem has proven difficult. You know what the other problem is? How many people actually know how to fix these things? That was the problem with the school buses. When they got the electric school buses, nobody knew how to work the electric school buses, how to do the repairs on them. It's hard enough to find a mechanic these days because you told everybody to go to college rather than trade school. Now, good luck finding somebody who knows how to work on the first in the nation hybrid electric ferry of that size. Good luck on that. Maybe only the people who built it actually know how to fix it. You know what that's like? That's like saying, okay, I'm going to go back to the manufacturer to have my car repaired. And I don't mean the dealership. I mean the manufacturer. Imagine that for a second, and there's only one. He emphasized that such problems are considered a normal part of vessel commissioning. Didn't you do sea trials with this thing? Mike, wasn't that the ferry we saw sitting out there for a while doing sea trials? Oh, and here's something else. You repaired or you replaced all the engines, so you ripped its guts out, but it's the same hull. I understand these things last a while, but aren't they like 50, 60 years old? You think there's no problems with that? Did you fix that at the same time? Until then, the Walla Walla and the Tacoma are covering the Seattle-Bainbridge route, with the Walla Walla kept on standby as part of the Washington State Ferry's post-conversion monitoring phase. The Wenatchee has already faced multiple setbacks since rejoining the fleet. In early August, it was briefly pulled to address follow-up items identified by the U.S. Coast Guard during certification, including cable replacements, battery module swaps, and fixing a fault alarm. After sea trials, the ferry was cleared to resume service. Mike, I'm such a dork. I can't help but thinking this. You know, in the opening of Star Trek First Contact, when they have the brand new Enterprise E, and Dr. Crusher says, does Starfleet feel we need more shakedown time? We've been in space nearly a year, Captain, says Geordie LaForge. We're ready. You tested that Enterprise for a year. How long did they test that ferry for? Like a week or something? 2 weeks? We saw that sucker out there. The Wenatchee was the first vessel to undergo hybrid electric conversion, but the project ran into major cost overruns and delays. The state initially estimated that converting 3 ferries would cost $120 million total. Instead, the Wenatchee alone cost $133 million and was nearly a year behind schedule, largely due to, wait for it, mismatched blueprints and unexpected engineering challenges. Okay, I don't know what's so, well, if you have the wrong blueprints, I can understand why you're going to have challenges. I mean, if you have a blueprint for an airplane and you're trying to build a boat, I understand there's going to be challenges there. I do understand that. By the way, we got called out on the text line, Mike. This is my bad. I got called out by a fan of Top Gun who says, Ari, if you can land an F-14 on an aircraft carrier, you can drive a truck. I will remind you, sir, I will remind you, John, that it wasn't Goose who was flying the plane. It was Maverick who was flying the plane. As far as I could tell from that second movie, all the guy does in the back is flip the fuses. Okay, I'm not diminishing anybody who is a Rio. I'm not doing that. I know you have a lot to do back there. I get it. You're running the plane. I'm just kidding around. Just kidding around. But yeah, this is yet more government incompetence. So I will remind everybody that earlier this month, Washington awarded a Florida-based company with a $714.5 million contract to build new ferries for Washington because apparently they're too expensive to build around here. More money blown and not even spent in Washington. Wow, really, everything really is better down in Florida. You can get better deals in Florida. If that isn't the most symbolic thing for blue states versus red states, I don't know what is. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Ryan in Lake Tapps. Ryan, what's going on?
Actually, it's Dave Bryant.
I'm sorry, I could barely hear you. What was that?
Dave Bryant.
Okay, I'm going to need you to call back, buddy. I can't understand what you're saying. Give us a call back at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go back to Weldon in Bremerton, who we lost earlier. Weldon, what's going on?
Yeah, I was in the middle of thanking you for answering that question about if there was an option of a different language. Thank God it only turned out to be old, reliable Democrat corruption. Nothing new here.
Nothing new to see, just the usual.
Here. Yeah, we It's everything the same old way it always is.
Same way it always is. Yes, the system's fine.
Yeah.
Just Democrats have figured out a way to corrupt it. Weldon, appreciate the humor. Appreciate the thank you. Appreciate the call. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from Richard in Linwood. Richard, what's going on?
Hey, Ari, how you doing?
Doing good, man. What's up?
I'm calling in because I don't know if you heard about the robots. They're able to like hold babies now and give birth and all that.
Oh, I saw an article on that. Oh, so what you're saying is we don't even need to build the robots now. They can reproduce? Is that what you're saying, Richard? That now they can carry babies, or are they still carrying them for humans? Is that what we're talking about here?
Yeah, some crazy iRobots. Yeah, turn on the Terminator 2 music.
See, Richard, you call with the right topic. You get your own music for that topic, sir. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. Appreciate the humor. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from Dave in Lake Taps. Dave, what's going on?
Hey, all right, great talking to you. But a lot of things been happening since that you've talked about, including flying F-14s, which I did for 26 years. But what I'm really calling about is the discussions on Antifa disrupting some other peaceful, I guess, park operations. One of the things that I think, I've thought that for a long time, especially after, 3 years ago when Antifa did the big thing and went into the Bellevue Mall and busted all the big display windows and everything.
Oh, that was 5 years ago, but yeah, I can't believe it's been 5 years, but that was 5 years ago during the BLM riots. Yeah.
Yeah. But, Antifa really should be designated as a terrorist organization so the police can immediately arrest them when they show up.
I agree.
That's obviously what they're doing to the city council. They're terrorizing them.
I agree. And here's the thing. We should be able to have a concert in whatever park we want. And if somebody wants to show up and protest peacefully, guess what? You get to do that according to the Constitution. But you don't get to throw urine. That's assault. You don't get to assault people. That's assault. And the fact that the Seattle City Council is going, oh, please move it to another park. They got a lot of complaints about the Hamas fundraiser that Macklemore said F America at in Seward Park. And they didn't move the thing, but it was there. And there were police there, but us Jews, we don't attack people. Antifa attacks people. So what do you think, right, Dave? You think that regardless of where this thing is, Antifa and crew are going to show up just to be problems?
Oh, I'm sure they will.
Right.
Yeah, but, the difficulty is unless there's something done legally, the police have to be reactive.
Mm-hmm.
And the city council or the state or the national government should be proactive on this and take an organization like that and designate them as a terrorist organization, because that's what they do. They go around and try to intimidate everybody from doing anything that they don't like.
Yeah, exactly right. And it's insane that we've allowed this to go on for so long, and we know there's coordination. I'll remind you of Nicole Thomas Kennedy, who ran for Seattle City Attorney, who was talking about creating a staging area between Portland and Seattle for Antifa in 2020. We know there's coordination in 2020. I saw the same people in Portland that I saw at the Seattle riots. We know they go to wherever the big show is. So why aren't we doing a RICO case? Dave, great call.
Right.
Appreciate you. Appreciate your service.
It
Go ahead. I'll let you finish.
It should be easy. When they show up in their Gestapo knockoff costumes, they should be arrested.
Yes, I agree. I don't know if we can arrest people for showing up in costumes, cosplayers. Otherwise, we're going to have a real problem at Comic-Con. But if they identify as Antifa and say, we're part of a terrorist organization, you would think they would do that with Hamas, which is designated a terrorist organization. Yeah. Dave, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. This is a great text right here. This is from the 253. That the ferry's having the same design problems as the Sound Transit light rail. All right, 253. You got to make sure we know your name and what city you're from, because that's a great text. I wonder, who is this engineering company? Is it the same one? I can just imagine Jay Inslee doing this. We need somebody to build the ferries. Who should we have do that? Oh, I know. The people building the light rail, that's green, right? We can have them build the ferries. Governor, they know how to build trains and not very well. They don't know how to build boats. Silence, peasants! I am King Inslee. Emergency powers for 975 days. You're fired. You're fired. I will not tolerate your insolence. I like how Inslee has gotten more and more tyrannical the longer I do that impression for. Holy cow. Speaking of crazy people, by the way, this one Mike found today and it cracked me up. This one here, Emily Robinson, a former Seattle resident and an avid cyclist, according to Como News, is suing the city of Seattle and Ballard Terminal Railroad Company, claiming negligence led to a bike crash that left her with lasting physical and emotional scars. Robinson said the city was aware of the dangers posed by railroad tracks under the Ballard Bridge, a spot known for bicycle crashes, yet failed to take adequate measures to protect cyclists. Okay, I think the road should be in good shape. But at the same time, Mike, I ride bikes all the time. You know, there's things I avoid, like train tracks, because things like, even if it's well paved, I avoid that kind of stuff. I'm sorry, crazy lady. This one I'm putting on you. I really, really am. Because at this point, who rides something unstable? You know what? I took my rollerblades over the train tracks and I face planted. Sue Seattle. That's their fault.
I snapped my ankle right in half.
I took my skateboard. I was holding onto the back of a truck with my skateboard like Marty McFly, and I went over some railroad tracks and I face planted. Oh, no, wait. I took my 1980s roller skates. I was on my roller skates from the roller rink and went right over those things, and wouldn't you know, I fell right off. I took my one wheel. Come on, really? You know what this is really about? I think the road should be in good shape. I really, really do. But at the same time, you know what this is about? This is about people who want the missing link of the Burke-Gilman Trail, this thing they've been fighting about. So the whole city is finally connected via bike lanes. You know, you don't have to be able to go from Seward Park to Shield Shoal Bay on your bike. You cycle in your neighborhood, you cycle to work. If you want to say, okay, we're going into the city, fine. You don't necessarily need all these things to connect. And why'd you put them in the middle of traffic, which is insane? By the way, speaking of insane, the residents of Westlake are really, really upset. Why? Because of all these bus only lanes, Westlake Avenue. And then they found out the city never did a traffic study and just said, put the bus lanes there. And you know what this reminded me of? This reminded me years ago during COVID, when the city was bus lane crazy and installing bike lanes and bus lanes everywhere in my neighborhood. And I did a public disclosure request and I said, what does this do to 911 response times? Did you ever do a study on that? And you know what I got back from the PDR people? No responsive requests, which means either it was destroyed because it was so bad or it was never done to begin with. And I'm actually more willing to say it was never done to begin with because they want those bike lanes and they want those bus lanes and they don't care what it gets in the way of, even if it is emergency vehicles. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. When we come back, more Fred Meyers are closing in our area. Is one of them near your house? And are QFCs soon to follow because of crime? We'll give you all details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just want to remind everybody that coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card. Yet another reason always keep your radio tuned to 570 KVI, left on your dial, always right on the issues. You can also stream us at KVI.com, download the KVI app, and, of course, subscribe on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. I love this text from Paul in North Seattle on our last segment. Ari, where did you get all those recordings of Inslee? I appreciate the humor, Paul. I really, really do. I do appreciate that. Eben in Bonnie Lake says, Ari, I have a two birds, one stone solution. Take the broken down electric ferries, put a bunch of holes in the sides of them, and throw the Antifa, I can't say the word you used to describe them, and make them row the ferries around. The problem will just take care of itself, right? We'll just solve it that way. Yeah, Greg and Puyallup, our new ferries have the world's most expensive ballast. That's what the batteries are going to be really, really quickly. Yeah, by the way, how waterproof are those batteries? As I understand it, you can't necessarily take your Tesla through certain car washes. You got to put it in car wash mode or something like that. I don't want to say I'm especially familiar with that. Look, I know my cars that I'm getting from our friends over at Renton, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, it has nothing like that. It's just go to the car wash, treat it like a car. I really like those things. They're really, really great. Switching gears over to the story we've been covering, which is Kroger, the parent company of Fred Meyer, announced Monday that it will close several locations as part of a broader cost-cutting strategy following the collapse of its proposed merger with Albertsons. Now, let's look at this one of two ways. Here's my caution with this. They're citing crime, and they're citing onerous regulations, which, by the way, we'll give them benefit of the doubt on. We will give them benefit of the doubt on. But at the same time, I mean, like, look, I know there's a homeless encampment behind my Fred Meyer in Renton, so I know exactly what they're dealing with. But at the same time, is this like the Rite Aid situation where the company's having problems anyway? Well, if it's like the Rite Aid situation where the company's having problems anyway, remember that one of the reasons they wanted to do that merger was that you wouldn't lose these grocery stores. And who's the one who shut down that merger? Mike, you know exactly who. There you go. Turd Ferguson. Funny name. That's the guy who shut this whole thing down. So no matter how you slice it, it's either Bob Ferguson has too many regulations, Bob Ferguson's not dealing with crime, or Bob Ferguson shut down the merger. No matter how you look at it, this is 100% on him, which is really amazing. He got the trifecta. That was really, really impressive. Well, now, according to King 5, it's not just 4 of these stores that are being shut down. It's actually 6. Kroger, the Ohio-based grocery corporation, owner of Fred Meyer and QFC, will be closing their Lake City and Redmond locations in October. This comes as the company just announced plans to close their Kent and Everett locations. Now, also don't forget, this is something people aren't talking about as much. Aren't there locations closing down south as well? Mike, you found that story, which is they announced that they're going to be closing some of the Tacoma area. And for some reason, those keep getting left out of these articles, right?
Yeah. I talked to a listener on the phone yesterday who was bringing to my attention that the Tacoma location is closing. I don't remember which one off the top of my head, but basically where that particular Fred Meyer is, once that store closes, the next available grocery store is miles and miles away. Basically, that makes that neighborhood a food desert.
Right, and the left are the ones who are always talking about the food deserts. Now, a lot of you will say, Ari, just use DoorDash or one of these places or Fresh Direct or any of this stuff. But you know what? The people who can't use their smartphones because they're old aren't going to be doing that. That may be something you could do down the road, but that doesn't solve your problem. Also, don't forget those things are a little bit more expensive. Now, according to Fox 13, I found the article, Mike. Here's the one you sent me. According to Fox 13, in July, Kroger said it would close a Fred Meyer in Tacoma and a QFC in Mill Creek. Both locations are set to close this September. So that's a total of 6 I got. I got the 2, the Everett one. I got all these different ones. But here's something else, guys. I know there's probably more location announcements on the way. How do I know this? Because I live near a QFC. The QFC on Rainier Avenue in South Seattle, I don't know how much longer it can last. There used to be a Rite Aid next to the QFC in the same strip mall. Those are the only 2 things in the strip mall. Across the street is Lowe's, which is where Six Stadium used to be, for those of you who remember Six Stadium. Those things are right near each other. Rite Aid closed. And what happened was somebody had the bright idea, hey, let's open a facility for the homeless here. Now, you know what? Somebody said to me recently, actually, Abigail Schreier said at the Northwest Sanity Forum, she said, we have to stop using the left's verbiage. We have to stop calling them homeless. They're not homeless. This is a word that came up with in my house, taxpayer-funded drug addicts, which, by the way, is more accurate. It doesn't roll off the tongue as easily. But taxpayer-funded drug addicts. That's really what they are. So somebody opened up a hygiene station for taxpayer-funded drug addicts right next to a QFC. For those of you who don't live in our area and don't have a QFC, maybe you live on the East Coast or something, they're a little bit higher end for a grocery store. They're more like a food emporium, if you know what that is, rather than like a Stop and Shop or something. Okay, that's for my East Coast listeners. Something like that. It's a little higher end, the QFC. So you put a homeless hygiene facility right next to a higher end grocery store. Then it's across the street from a Lowe's. Now, we know you have Lowe's and Home Depot and McClendon's. I prefer McClendon's because McClendon's has the stuff you're not going to find anywhere else. But my thing was Home Depot used to have the better staff, and then they didn't have as good of a staff. So I started going to Lowe's, which had the better staff and was a little bit more high end. Now I don't know which one to go to because the problem is people are stealing from them all the time, and none of them are safe. But that was my Lowe's also. And if the QFC has all these problems, my wife told me she had to get something from QFC that she knew QFC had. She drove in that parking lot, said, nope, flipped the Yui, and just left and went to Mercer Island to go to the QFC over there instead because that's how bad it looked. So if they're stealing from the QFC, and I notice how many more security guards are out there, that means they're probably also stealing from the Lowe's. So now, the QFC, I guarantee you at some point they're going to say, we're closing this location. There's no way it is profitable enough to be dealing with all that crime all the time. Then what do you think is next? Lowe's. Lowe's is right there. Imagine if Lowe's says, we are closing this up, go to South Center, go to the East Side, go somewhere else because it's so bad over there. The fact that the employees there put out garbage bags for all the illegal aliens that are trying to get jobs there and all the taxpayer-funded drug addicts that are out there shows how bad the problem really is. And I've seen people walk out of there with whatever stuff they're carrying. This is just going to keep decimating Rainier Avenue. It's been homeless encampment. They started over by I-90 where that park is, where they have all the rock-throwing incidents, and then they've been moving slowly south. They take over a property, burn it to the ground, then move on to the next one and the next one. They're like the aliens from Independence Day. They're like locusts. They find it, they consume all the resources, then they move on. That's literally what's happening with the taxpayer-funded drug addicts. When we come back, my friends, Corey DeAngelis, school choice champion, will be joining us to give us the details on how we might be actually able to save Washington State education. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KBI. I can't believe the kids are going back to school so soon. Seems like we just started playing that intro for the summer just a couple days ago, and really it's already been almost 3 months. So yesterday I was at the Northwest Insanity Forum out in Renton, Washington, run by our friends from Future 42, the people behind Let's Go Washington, with our friend Steve Gordon and Brian Haywood, and everybody else was out there. And they brought in all these speakers to inspire all of us about things we could do. I really wanted to interview Corey DeAngelis. Corey DeAngelis is one of the country's experts on school choice, goes around advocating for it, and I'm really happy I got the chance to talk to him because he gave us some tips about what we could do here in Washington to solve the issue with public education. Give a listen. I'm sitting here at the Northwest Sanity Forum. I'm seated next to education expert, I'm going to say, advocate for school choice, Corey DeAngelis. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Hey, Ari, thanks for having me.
So you haven't given your speech yet. You're going to give your speech soon. What do you plan on talking about today?
I'm talking about how much winning we're doing, at least in red states, when it comes to school choice. Randy Weingarten really stepped on a rake when they fought to keep schools closed a few years ago during the COVID era, and they showed families what was happening in the classroom. Parents are upset. They've become a new interest group of sorts, more like a general interest. They're fighting for their own kids, but they're beating the teachers' unions at their own game by banding together, locking arms, and holding politicians accountable when they don't support parental rights in education. So I'll talk a little bit about that. I'll talk a little bit about the incestuous relationship between the teachers union and the Democrat Party. We've seen that 99% of the campaign contributions every single election cycle from Randy Weingarten's union, the American Federation of Teachers, goes to the Democrats. The teachers union is basically a money laundering operation for the Democrat Party at this point. It ought to be illegal, and at the very least, we should revoke the NEA's federal charter. That's the largest teachers union in the country. They have the backing of Congress. They've had a federal charter for over 100 years. The only union that has this special privilege that was bestowed to them by Congress in 1906. And I'll talk a little bit about their their resolutions they passed this year that were totally wacky. They read more like a declaration of war on the Trump administration. And there's a lot of conservative teachers, independent teachers who aren't on board with the radical agenda by Randy Weingarten and Becky Pringle.
So now that you've laid out what we need to do, how can we practically do it? Because look, you've got, 6 months before we have to ramp up for an election season? And you've got a ticking clock, and if you lose the House, if you lose Congress, now you've got a bigger problem on top of that. How do we practically do that?
Well, we already had a victory in the big, beautiful bill, and there's actually a school choice provision that was included in there. At one point, after it passed through the House, it was stripped out of the budget bill by the Democrat-appointed parliamentarian that we have, which I don't understand how Senate Leader John Thune still allows a Democrat-appointed parliamentarian to be able to have this power to unilaterally take out specific policies from a budget bill. It's insane. Ted Cruz and some others were able to get it put back in, but there was this kind of deal that was made that allows governors to determine whether parents in your state can benefit from the new school choice package. It's a federal tax credit. It's not government money. It's you can donate your funding that would have gone to the government to a scholarship granting organization and get a dollar for dollar tax credit for doing so. And then families in your state, if your governor allows them to, can go to these organizations, get scholarships to pay for private school tuition. So it's squarely in the hands of the Washington state governor and other governors to make that decision to opt in. If they don't, it's kind of like the 21 drinking age. Every state has a 21 drinking age, whether we like it or not, because it's tied to federal highway funding. It's not a federal mandate. It's essentially a choice by the states, but they want that federal benefit in the highway funding, so they choose 21. You kind of have a similar situation here with the Big Beautiful Bill in that everybody can donate to these organizations, but you can only get the scholarships if your governor says you can. So if they don't, if a blue state governor says, I'm not going to opt in, they're going to, whether they know it or not, allow their constituents to subsidize families to go to private schools in red states. So hopefully, we've seen some blue state governors like Josh Shapiro and Josh Stein out of North Carolina and Pennsylvania. They've indicated they're thinking about opting in. So maybe this will lead some other blue state governors to opt in too.
I don't know if that's going to happen with ours because Bob Ferguson out here, he even sends his kids to private school. He brags about sending his kids to private school. And then the second you call him on it, he says, oh, no, it's all about public school. Now, mind you, places like Florida, you don't see the public schools suffer. You actually see them get better because now they have to compete with the private schools.
Yep.
So if you had to tell everybody here in Washington, hey, how can you get this done even when you have such headwinds you're fighting against, what would you recommend?
Yeah, so opt into the big, beautiful bill. Try to pressure the governor to do so. But if he doesn't do that, hold them accountable. And we saw this in places like Virginia with Governor Glenn Youngkin, who won on the issue of parental rights in education. His opponent, Terry McAuliffe, was basically an incumbent. He was the former governor in a blue state that apparently went 10 points to Biden the year before in 2020. Terry McAuliffe slipped up on the final debate stage when he said, quote, I don't think parents should be telling schools what they should teach. So if you're a Republican here in Washington, and if you want to win votes on this issue, you better be talking about parental rights on education on repeat through Election Day. And if you're a parent and you're not okay with what's happening in the school, maybe you just want the school to focus on the basics. A lot of Democrats aren't on board with the gender ideology in the classroom. They're not on board with the divisive concepts like critical race theory. And so the more that we talk about these are 80-20 issues on the side of parental rights. Democrats at some point, they're going to lose so much support on these issues, they'll have to come along as well. They'll defect on the issue, think about their constituents as opposed to special interest. And so I think we got to talk about it more. We have to have politicians running on the issues more. And hopefully that creates the right incentives to make it happen. You can also do it on the ballot. So you can circumvent your union-controlled legislature here in Washington by putting it directly to the people. You might have a better chance at getting the voters to support the initiative than getting legislators who rely on funding from the teachers unions.
It's so funny you mentioned that because the Northwest Sanity Forum, which we're at right now, is put on by Future 42, a.k.a. the guys behind Let's Go Washington, who've got all those other initiatives on the ballot. And something I've been saying for a long time is if you do school choice, that might be the next one to go. In fact, I've had a lot of people say the same thing. Corey DeAngelis, keep up the fight for all of us. You're doing great work. You really, really are. I love when you highlight Washington, so if you could do that a bit more, we'll appreciate that. But then I feel bad at the same time. Corey DeAngelis, thank you so much for being with us today.
Hey, thank you so much, Ari.
We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show from the Northwest Sanity Forum here in Renton, Washington on Talk Radio 570 KVI. It's really crazy how addicted to power some people can be. Democrats think if we import as many illegal aliens as possible, look at all the new voters we'll get. We'll get them illegally registered to vote, but also we'll get them dependent on government services, so that way they'll always vote for the Democrats. Town Hall just put this out. Undocumented immigrants with California driver's licenses, AB 60, that's the bill that did it. California's Department of Motor Vehicles has issued nearly 1.2 million original AB 60 driver's licenses to undocumented immigrants since the law went into effect in January 2015. 1.2 million illegal aliens with driver's licenses. And I say this all the time. A car can be a weapon if used improperly. What is the most common crime we find among these illegal aliens? And I'm saying this anecdotally because I just follow the ones they post about. I don't do analysis. But what they're usually posting about is driving-related crimes. It's usually DUI, reckless driving, driving without a license. So the Democrat argument falls apart. The Democrat argument falls apart where they say, well, they just need a driver's license to get to work. Well, then why are we always seeing these DUIs? Why are we always seeing the reckless driving? Because they would say, oh, driving without a license. Well, if you just gave them licenses, they wouldn't have that problem. No. Driving with a suspended license. That's another one. So you gave them the driver's license and then that. I'm not saying these are truck driver's licenses. There's not 1.2 million truck drivers with illegal licenses in California. That's all I'm saying. These are regular driver's licenses. In addition, more than 822,000 license renewals have been processed. So these people are staying. So they're illegal aliens who have been here for, I don't know, Mike, how long are our licenses good for these days? 5 years, 10 years, something like that? I know I always forget, and they never send me a notice, and I always go to, rent a car or something, and then I can't rent. That's what always happens every single time. Other credible estimates show over 1 million licenses are currently held by undocumented residents in California. So it's either 1.2 million or over a million, but either way, we're talking about a lot of people who shouldn't be driving in our country. Shouldn't be. If you can't follow the rules, if you can't read the signs, how can you follow the rules of the road? So wait a second. You're telling me that California gave this many people driver's licenses? How many did Washington give? Is it any surprise to anybody what happened in Florida, where now you have this illegal alien truck driver who's driving on a freeway, makes a U-turn in the middle. Oh, sorry, on the East Coast they're called highways because it's highway robbery, what you have to pay in tolls. So what happens is he makes an illegal U-turn. This minivan plows into the thing, killing 3 people inside of it. We find out the guy had a CDL from California. We find out he had a CDL from Washington. We find out he had a CDL from New Mexico. We find out this report from the Oregonian, not an outlet in my little black book from several months ago, saying that there was this truck driving school which was sending out cash, paying people off the books to take these tests for these illegals who can't read English, like this guy. How do we know this guy couldn't read English? Because he was cited earlier for not passing an English exam that he needed when he got pulled over. So this guy never should have been on the road. Then, aside from finding out there's these schools that are doing this scam where they're paying other people to take the test for them, we're finding out that this CDL school was getting $24,000 of your taxpayer money here in Washington. This is by design. This is by design. You can't say there's any other reason than we want the voters here. Can't say there's any other reason. The good news is that Texas just got back their quorum. The Democrats came back to town yesterday. They had their quorum today, and the House there, their House of Representatives, voted to redistrict 5 seats to become more Republican-leaning and got rid of Jasmine Crockett. They didn't get rid of her yet. But in the next election, the question is, does she move somewhere to get reelected? So good news there. Of course, the blue states are going to respond. But how much can they respond when you're looking at states that are already gerrymandered up the wazoo? This is beyond crazy. So here, following up on our earlier story about the taxpayer-funded drug addicts who are destroying South Seattle and many other neighborhoods so that Fred Meyers have to close, Mike Curb says Lowe's is in trouble financially. My niece's husband got laid off there because the store is closing. Well, is the store closing because of the crime? We don't actually know what's going on. I haven't seen any reports. I should check Lowe's earning reports and see what's going on here. The 360 says, how about residentially challenged individuals? No, because that kind of leaves out the drug aspect and the vagrant aspect. I could see vagrants. We could use the word that our friend Todd Herman used to use, which was street people. The street people. That one I kind of always enjoyed. That one was always a good one. This one here. This one is, my Kroger has armed guards patrolling the aisles because of brazen thieves. They carry Glock 19s. This Kroger is in University Place on Bridgeport Way. Yeah, that's unfortunately what I'm seeing a lot of my grocery stores as well. They either have the rent-a-cops or they have the really heavy-duty security at my grocery store, because that's how out of control crime has gone in our area. When we come back, my friends, final hour free-for-all, your stories, your texts, your calls, plus also the parents who were involved in that attempted honor killing of their daughter outside her high school. They got sentenced the other day, and we'll tell you what they got, and I ain't happy. Tell you all about it. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show's final hour free for all. Your calls, your texts, your thoughts, your stories. Streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up at 5:45. Your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card, plus so much more. But before we get to any of that, my friends, looks like I struck a nerve with the Lowe's story this time and the Fred Meyer story this time. So we go right to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from Brian in Seattle. Brian, what's going on?
Hey, Ari, just a quick side note. I'm a general contractor, and about a year ago, I went into the Lowe's store down there on Rainier, first thing in the morning, went into the tool department, needed a concrete drill bit, and I went in there and watched this guy just load a backpack with all the expensive tools he could stuff in that thing. I became so angry that I started following him out of the store. I would not let him get to the exit. I created such a stir in the store that, of course, all the store employees came over, and then store security came down, and I was not going to relent. And the guy finally emptied his backpack. Store security just looked at me and said, "That guy comes in every single morning and takes $1,000 worth of tools."
So the question is, why don't they stop these guys? Why don't they stop him if he's doing it every single day?
Well, because, the store policies are don't interfere for fear that they're going to get stabbed or assaulted. So the store policies, and furthermore, they're not going to get arrested. They're not going to get prosecuted.
Yeah, crazy stuff. And this is why these stores have these problems. This is exactly what it is. I mean, think about this. I want you to imagine this. Brian, you know how big a Lowe's is. You know specifically how big this Lowe's is. It was built where a baseball stadium used to be. So this is a pretty big size Lowe's. I want you to imagine now it goes empty. Imagine if that sucker goes empty. Where do you think all the homeless in the neighborhood are going to go?
Oh, it's just going to be an eyesore. It's going to get boarded up. It's going to get covered with graffiti. You'll have people living in the parking lots. Living around the store under the cover area and the loading area. It'll be a mess. Yeah, it'll be the taxpayer-funded drug addicts who are going to move into this thing, and eventually that thing will burn down just like every other abandoned building or emptied building because they lost their tenant because of the crime. Hey, Bruce Harrell, you have to drive past this thing every single time you go to City Hall. Every single time. Do you even notice what's going on? Do you even notice what you've done? Do you even go to work? Do you even go to City Hall? You're just spending all your time in Bellevue. Brian, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from Rob in Tequila. Rob, what's going on?
Hey, Ari, good to talk to you again. I wanted to tell you a little bit about the culture of India. From what I heard, that's where he's from. When he made that illegal U-turn, the truck driver. The truck driver. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I had some neighbors a few years back. He used to work for Microsoft. He was from India, and he would tell me stories about there's no traffic laws in India. So, a red light is just a suggestion. And one time his brother-in-law was visiting, and they were in a 4-lane highway, and he needed to make a left turn. And he was on the wrong end of it. He just cuts across and cuts off all these people. And he's like freaking out. What are you doing to his brother-in-law? His brother-in-law says, "What? What did I do wrong?" Because in that culture, there's no real consequences for violating. There's no real set law. Everything's suggestion. So maybe for him making that illegal U-turn, it could be just and I'm not offering excuses or devil's advocate, but I'm just saying, like, hey, that there's laws on the road, and the fact that he, probably didn't take his CDL test would suggest that he's going back to, what it was like when he was a kid growing up or whatever,
Well, that could be it. But, I mean, let's go for the easier solution. I'm not saying you're wrong. I've never been to India. I don't know. I have no interest in going to India. There are many other countries I'd rather go first than India. For example, I want to go check out the Colosseum in Rome. But I hear Rome doesn't like my people very much right now, so probably not the best place to go. But I kind of want to stand out on that platform and go, I am Maximus Decimus Meridius. I kind of want to do that. But I will say regarding this, we know the guy can't speak English. And we know there was a sign that said no U-turn, no turnaround, none of that. So he probably saw the sign and for all we know, assumed it was one that said you can do a U-turn. Who even knows? But yeah, Rob, I don't know a lot about the Indian culture or anything like that, so I'm not going to speculate. But at the same time, you're not wrong. Different countries have different cultures. Look, even New York and Seattle. I'm a New Yorker who drives here. I learned offensive driving. Here I hear they teach you defensive driving. I learned offensive driving, which is flip somebody the bird when you don't like what they're doing. No, that's not what it is. Offensive driving is just, you be very, very aggressive because everybody else is very, very aggressive. Normally they teach you defensive driving. I had to get used to that just driving out here because it works so differently. It's like everybody here is united in common purpose to go the exact same speed together to the same place. And I go, what's wrong with all you people? How am I supposed to weave through traffic what you people are doing? Rob, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Mark and Graham. Mark, what's going on?
Not much. I was just calling. A friend of mine is over in the middle of the war over there between Russia and Ukraine. He's a doctor, Ukrainian doctor, and he just went. I talked to him on the 16th. He went up to the front, and there's bodies laying all over.
That's horrible. That's really horrible.
And what he was talking about is they appreciate the U.S. What they're doing for him, but he's afraid that if the EU doesn't jump in and start helping them out, that's why they want to be a part of NATO, that they're not going to survive to a peace agreement.
Right. The problem we have with the NATO thing, and this is the complicated problem here, Bill Clinton really dug us in a hole. I understand you want to stop nuclear proliferation after the Cold War ended, and I don't know what options were on the table. I clearly wasn't in the White House. I was in elementary school. But at the same time, you got to figure out a safe solution. But when the U.S. guarantees to Ukraine, if you guys get rid of all your nuclear weapons, we'll have your back. Bill Clinton started this mess. Joe Biden continued this mess. Barack Obama continued this mess. And now we are in this mess which Trump has inherited. And now for the rest of the time, are we stuck defending Ukraine? Look, I love that all the EU leaders came to the White House the other day. There's two pictures I love. One is Meloni, the prime minister of Italy. She's sitting there with her arms crossed, looking all ticked off, and she is the master of the eye roll. She really, really is. And she's got this look on her face like, couldn't this have been a Zoom call? That was kind of funny. That was the caption I saw on that one. But the other one, when they're all sitting there in front of Donald Trump in the chairs in the Oval Office, that picture is the greatest picture for me. You know why? They're all sitting there and they look like they're in the principal's office. They all look like they look like they all just did some terrible prank and the principal called them in and says, all right, here's what we're going to do, people. So yeah, Mark, I hear what you're saying. I hear where you're coming from. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. I got an email yesterday from Tim. Tim sent me an email, and he was very, very upset because I kept teasing a story, and I didn't actually end up doing the story. And actually, our last caller gave me the perfect entry to the story. Tim said, Ari, you kept teasing that Melania Trump wrote this great letter about how she was trying to stop war in Ukraine, and you gave her a lot of credit, and you had such amazing teases, but yet you never actually got to the story, and that's my bad. Because we're at the Northwest Sanity Forum yesterday, I kept having these different guests after guest after guest after guest, and actually I completely missed the story. So, Tim, for you, we're going to do it right now. So here's the letter that Melania Trump wrote. And here's what she wrote to President Putin. Dear President Putin, every child shares the same quiet dreams in their heart, whether born randomly into a nation's rustic countryside or a magnificent city center. They dream of love, possibility, and safety from danger. As parents, it is our duty to nurture the next generation's hope. As leaders, the responsibility to sustain our children extends beyond the comfort of a few. Undeniably, we must strive to paint a dignity-filled world for all, so that every soul may wake up to peace, and so the future itself is perfectly guarded. A simple yet profound concept, Mr. Putin, as I'm sure you agree, is that each generation's descendants begin their lives with a purity, an innocence which stands above geography, government, and ideology. Yet in today's world, some children are forced to carry a quiet laughter, untouched by the darkness around them, a silent defiance against the forces that could potentially claim their future. Mr. Putin, you can single-handedly restore their melodic laughter in protecting the innocence of these children. You will do more than serve Russia alone. You serve humanity itself. Such a bold idea transcends all human division. And you, Mr. Putin, are fit to implement this vision with a stroke of a pen today. It is time. Sincerely, Melania Trump. And I'll say, You would think to yourself, it's about the children. It's about the children. It doesn't mean anything. Putin's an evil dictator. Does he really care about something like this? But I'll say this for our First Lady. She tried. She really tried. And you know something about Zelensky? Zelensky saw the letter because it was posted widely on social media. And Zelensky thanked her for doing that because Zelensky has learned to say thank you. After being slapped around by dad, Zelensky has learned you have to say thank you. But I'll say this actually is a great perspective on this, is that kids are born into wherever kids are born into, and look what these kids are being born into in Russia. In Russia, they're being built for war. In Ukraine, they're being built to survive. This is what these kids are being built into. This is the world they're growing up in. You know, we heard Gad Saad. Actually, we're going to be playing my interview with Gad Saad later today. He was speaking at the Northwest Insanity Forum that we had out in Renton, Washington yesterday, and he was talking about escaping Lebanon. He was talking about escaping Lebanon, and the same things that they were doing to destroy the society in Lebanon are the same things he's seeing destroying society in Canada, the same things he sees destroying society here in America, just we're a few years behind. You're going to hear that coming up at 5:30 today. But Melania Trump, she shared this letter. And I got to say, I don't know if Putin has a heart. I assume he does at some point. And I'm not saying Melania Trump is the one creating peace, but she's trying. You ever see Joe Biden do anything about that? You ever see Joe Biden even try? Joe Biden was just thrilled that her husband was in the White House. She was thrilled to be the one running the show, our very own Edith Wilson we had going on there. Yeah, it was really nice of the First Lady to try. It really, really, really was. Question is, does it make a difference? I mean, here's the thing I don't understand. I know that Putin wants to reestablish the Soviet Union. I get that. I understand that. But at the same time, at some point, you got to go, is it better to reestablish it through commerce, through peace that way? Because right now, it seems like the bombing ain't going to work. I mean, he thinks he can wait out whatever Republican president comes in until the next Democrat president who's going to let him do whatever he wants. But at some point, you got to go, we just ain't going to get that much farther. Well, any president, if they're Democrat or Republican, you think they're going to let them take France? You think they're going to let them take Italy? Actually, the truth is, I don't know about the Democrats these days. They may be on board with that kind of stuff. Meanwhile, switching gears over to another story. On Monday, the Iraqi parents accused of attempted honor killing of their teenage daughter outside Timberline High School in Lacey, Washington last fall were sentenced months after a jury acquitted them of attempted murder but convicted them on lesser charges. You remember what happened here? So you have these two parents that are on this viral video. The girl was apparently going to be married off to some guy in Iraq, and she didn't want to go. She had a boyfriend here in the U.S. So what happens is she ran away and ran to school. And outside the school, her father caught up with her and tried to strangle her to death. And when people pulled him off his daughter, the mother tried to strangle her to death. This girl barely survived. Thank God for the bystanders there. But then the judge wouldn't let any evidence of the marriage in Iraq be introduced to court. Gee, I still don't know how a jury didn't convict these parents when the video was so clear, when the witness testimony all said the exact same thing. Thirsty County Judge, Superior Court Judge Shaler handed down the maximum penalties allowed for the convictions. Ihsan Ali, the father, was sentenced to roughly 20 months in prison for second-degree assault, unlawful imprisonment, and fourth-degree assault. He must also undergo a domestic violence evaluation, complete a parenting class. Yes, I'm sure that will fix it. And is barred from contacting his daughter for 10 years and her boyfriend for 2 years. So why not 10 years for the boyfriend, too? What, you assume that teenage relationship's not going to last? Is that what that is? But at the same time, you're literally letting the psycho back onto the streets who tried to kill her. I still don't understand how you say attempted assault, entrapment, keeping a person against their will, how you do all that, but don't say it was attempted murder. I really don't understand what was going on in that jury room. His wife, Zara Ali, received 364 days for violating a court order with 83 days suspended. She, too, is prohibited from contacting her daughter's boyfriend for 2 years. Miss Ali had previously been barred from school grounds in order not to contact the teen's boyfriend following a separate incident. How do you not give these guys the full freight? The video's there. The video's clear. The couple had originally faced attempted murder charges, but after 3 days of jury deliberations earlier this month, both were acquitted on that count. Ali was convicted of assault and unlawful imprisonment. Mrs. Ali was found guilty only of violating a court order. The teenage victim confronted her father directly in a powerful statement, according to Como News. She said, "You think I'm a disgusting human being? Well, I think you're a disgusting monster. My dad tried to kill me with his own hands. Do you have no love for me? I know you were smiling when you choked me. I'm going to pray for you to stay in jail and die." My God, wow. She also criticized her mother for failing to intervene. Mrs. Ali cried as her daughter spoke. Well, why didn't you cry when your daughter was being strangled to death? Instead, you jumped in there and tried to finish the job. Outside the courtroom, the teen told Como News she was relieved to be free of her family. I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad I'm still alive. I'm doing things and I'm moving on. But it's hard to really let go from this family. The teen's boyfriend, who was punched during the attack, submitted a statement describing ongoing depression, anxiety, and trauma caused by the assault. This is something Judge Shaler, called out Mr. Ali, but you know what? You should have allowed the evidence in. You should have allowed the evidence of the marriage in Iraq in. Why didn't you let it in? It's completely relevant. She thought it might bias the jury. Well, yeah, it's part of the case. She said to him, you are not going to let her go and you are not going to let her breathe. Children are not property to do with as a parent desires. Whoa, 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 whoa. You said that statement there, but didn't allow in the evidence of this guy wanting to sell his daughter to some dude in Iraq to be his wife? Give me a break. This is you not wanting to deal with the online hate you're probably getting for this terrible decision, which led to the acquittal. And you're trying to be like, look how tough I am. Then she turned to the victim and added, always know, despite what has happened, you get to define who you are. You have the power. You have the strength, and no one can take that away from you. Hey, guess what, Judge? Your sentences just let these people back into their daughter's life 10 years from now. You just did that. And with good behavior, they could be out sooner. Hey, the mom's not even going to be in jail for a full year. It's going to be less than a year with the suspended sentence. She's going to be back in her daughter's life probably earlier than this time next year. You did that, Judge. You made this mess. We have a problem with activist judges in this area. We really, really do, because this kind of stuff happens. This kind of stuff happens far too frequently, where these judges allow their own personal biases. Oh, well, we just don't understand their culture. No, we understand it just fine. You think it would prejudice the jury? Well, yeah. Yeah, it really, really would. I love how everybody's saying deport them, deport them, deport them. By the way, I did send a request over to ICE. ICE got back to me because everybody's question is always the same. Are they illegals? Are they here illegally? ICE said to me they need a few more details. I'm sending them over a few more details, so that way hopefully we'll be able to get an answer. I have to look up some court documents tonight. Yes, even adults have homework. Kids got to do that sometimes when we get home. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. When we come back, there's a reason your utility bills are so much higher and why they continue to go up. Guess what? It's the Democrats, despite what they say about Trump. We'll explain when we come back, but first, Todd Herman's Daily Thoughtcast right now on The Ari Hoffman Show. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 Daniels Broiler gift card, plus so much more. Yeah, another reason, always keep your radio tuned to 570 KVI. Left on your dial, always right on the issues. You can also stream us at KVI.com, download the KVI app, and, of course, subscribe on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. You notice your utility bills are going up? You know why your utility bills are going up here in Washington? Because of Democrats, because of the Climate Commitment Act. Because when they charge this crazy cap and tax program they have on the people who produce energy, guess what? Energy is the lifeblood of our economy. And the energy, when the energy is more expensive, everything else goes up. How do all your goods get here? They get sent in on a massive, massive truck. Somebody was telling me yesterday at the Northwest Sanity Forum that they were having a conversation with somebody at the Seattle Department of Transportation, who, shall we just say, one of the former directors, who I'm glad isn't there anymore. And when this person was talking about how nobody would have a car within 3 years, that's the plan. By the way, you know why things are getting so much worse to drive in Seattle? They want you out of your car. This person very calmly looked at this person and said, well, how do you plan on the trucks getting around? And of course, the fool had no answer for that. No answer whatsoever. Your goods get more expensive because when truck drivers have to pay more for gas, guess what happens? The cost of getting your goods to you costs more money and goes up. When farmers have to spend more money in gas so that they can actually do what it takes to harvest their crops, your costs go up. When you impose all these taxes on small businesses, your costs go up. Now, apparently, they're not satisfied with that. With the billions of dollars they've gotten from the Climate Commitment Act, so they're trying to find a way to charge people from out of state because they realize people who live near the border of Idaho are going across the border to get gas. They realize that truckers fill up before coming to this area. They realize that, so they want their little piece of the pie. According to the Center Square, the Washington State Department of Ecology said it is developing a report to the legislature about policy options for how certain industrial facilities could be regulated under Washington's Cap and Invest program from 2035 onward. Really? Under the Climate Commitment Act, the Cap and Trade, I'm just going to call it Cap and Tax. The Cap and Tax program is designed to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by placing a price on pollution. Yeah, it's not really doing that at all. Over 90% of this money is actually going to all these nonprofits and different organizations, and it's not actually going to reduce climate change. It works by setting a cap on total emissions from major sources and allowing those sources to trade in allowances that permit them to emit a certain amount of pollution. The program aims to drive down emissions while generating revenue to fund climate solutions and benefit communities disproportionately affected by pollution. It generated $3.2 billion since its implementation. In a recent article by E&E News, described Washington as considering a carbon fee on out-of-state products that do not charge for carbon emission. They say, quote, that story had some inaccuracies, such as that we are considering overhauling the carbon market and revising current policies, she said. This is Caroline Halter, communications manager for the Department of Energy's Climate Pollution Reduction Program. It also didn't do a good job of describing the process that's happening in the stage it's at, which is where we are gathering input for a legislative report. So here's what it's going to be. She says that some of the EITEs, that's what they're calling these things, are important local industries that are mostly manufacturing facilities. About 40 facilities in Washington qualify as set out in the new Climate Commitment Act. These facilities produce a variety of products, including paper, food, beverages, steel, aluminum, glass, cement, building materials, airplanes, semiconductors, fertilizer, and transportation fuels. They use high levels of energy. Wait, they're basically everything we use? They produce high levels of energy and release large amounts of greenhouse gases while also facing significant national or global competition for their products. Certain of these industries are granted no-cost allowances to help them comply with the program's regulations because the legislature recognized these industries face unique challenges in reducing their greenhouse gas emissions in the program's early years. You mean that people said to you, guys, you are absolutely killing these industries, absolutely killing them, making them so expensive people can't buy them anymore. You know what probably happened? Boeing said, you idiots realize that now we have to charge more for an airplane and we have to compete with Airbus? And if there's less airplanes, there's less tax money for you fools. And we will move out of state. I love that airplanes are specified. How many other industries said, have you guys gone completely insane? We are moving our company out of here. So now they're thinking about taking it off some people, but that means you're still left holding the bag. So even if they take those taxes off Boeing, you're not buying any airplanes. I know what you're going to say. Well, my flights get cheaper because they don't have to spend much money buying the airplanes. How often do you fly? You fill up your gas tank once a week, once every 2 weeks, once every 3 weeks, whatever it is. That affects you a whole lot more. How often do you buy groceries? Yeah, they're not taking any of the money off of that. Meanwhile, though, according to the Center Square, Washington Attorney General Nick Brown is suing the Trump administration, because it's a day that ends in Y, over more than $9 million withheld from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration funding dedicated to mitigating climate change. Really? I didn't know we could just spend our way out of climate change. First, you have to prove to me it's actually happening. After that, you have to show me how any of this money has actually fixed that. How has any of this money solved the problem? Because none of it actually has. But Nick Brown does have a good point. If Congress allocated the money for this in a law, one of those giant omnibus spending bills, then you know what you got to do? Congress has to undo that. Congress is on recess right now. You know, they've got maybe 6 months to get all this stuff done, and I'm beginning to really worry if they actually can. Republicans control the House and the Senate. You're going to have elections next year. Everybody's going to be running for office. People in purple districts are going to be scared into not voting for things. And you know where we're at? Now, you will have just said, well, we wasted all the time we had in office because Democrats took back the House and the Senate. I know I saw J.D. Vance getting interviewed today and saying, no, I think we can win. Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen, guys. I really don't. I'm very, very concerned right now because though a lot of people say we're winning, you're not going up against Kamala Harris. You're not going up against Joe Biden. And what's going to happen is it's just going to be the Trump reaction from a lot of people who think we're doing great or not doing great or whatever the case may be. And I'm very, very concerned. If you guys have rescissions you want to do, you need to do them right away. You know what I think they should do, Mike? I think they should come back in September. And I think they should just do all of this. One after another, day after day after day after day. Do all this and then run for office in October, right? Because what really happens is campaign season kicks off in January. In January, everybody's running for office. Nothing is going to get done. So realistically, how much time do we have? September, October, November until the week before Thanksgiving. That's all the time you really have. That's it. To get all these rescissions done. Get all the Doge rescissions done. Get all this money that Congress shouldn't have allocated in the first place. Get it all back. Because then you shut down a bunch of these cases. The Supreme Court's going to say, Congress already fixed it. What do you want us to do? They write the laws. Whether it's constitutional or unconstitutional, we decide. But yeah, Nick Brown's not entirely wrong in this case. God, I hate when I have to admit that. Nick Brown's not entirely wrong. Because looking at this stuff, if Congress voted for it, if they did, then you know what? Congress has to undo it. President Trump can pause it, but Congress are the ones that need to undo it. So maybe rather than Marjorie Taylor Greene going on Megyn Kelly's podcast and ranting about Jews and Israel and all that, maybe you could actually go and do your jobs in Congress, Republicans. Maybe just do all these rescissions, and then you might actually be able to solve a lot of these problems, like our out-of-control debt. You guys are always talking about the debt. Then you know what? Vote on the laws to repeal the spending. That's what you need to do. Otherwise, you just talk. And otherwise, you are handing over Congress to the Democrats on a silver platter in 2026. And I really don't want to see that happen because then the entire America First Trump agenda gets stopped right in its tracks. Do you want to see a Speaker Jeffries? Do you want to see Majority Leader Schumer? Then you tell your Congress people. They got to get back to work and they got to make these rescissions permanent. Lots more to discuss as the show continues when we come back. Professor Gad Saad, my interview with him from the Northwest Sanity Forum, where he's going to talk about how the same things he saw in Lebanon, which he escaped from, he's seeing in Canada and the United States. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Yesterday, I had such a wonderful time at the Northwest Sanity Forum. I keep doing that. Sanity Forum, talking about how we can fix Washington. Steve Gordon, Brian Haywood, the people from Project 42, Future 42, and the people behind Let's Go Washington brought out all these people who are experts in their field. And it was so great to be able to take away things we can use to fix things here in Washington. One of my favorite speeches of the weekend was Professor Godsod. He's an expert on so many different fields, and he's a very, very brilliant guy. He's got PhDs, he's got MBAs, you name it. I got to talk to him for about an hour, just one-on-one. What a brilliant, brilliant guy, and he makes it accessible, too. And what he was talking about is a lot of the stuff he saw in Lebanon, a lot of social contagion. He sees that destroy not just civilizations, but also different species, are the same things that are affecting us here in America. We're just a few years behind these other countries where this has happened. Give a listen. I am sitting here with Professor Godsod, and we just got off the stage together, and we're here at the Northwest Sanity Forum in Renton, Washington. And it's a gathering of, I don't want to say conservative activists, I'd say common sense activists, people who have been activated who said the insanity here has just gone too far. Your speech was magnificent, really, and I don't normally say that. Usually I'm checking my watch during speeches and stuff, but you were going through basically how other societies, other species have been destroyed by, I'd say, going against their most basic instincts or biological factors or societal factors. What can you tell us about that?
Right, so when I first begin my MBA classes, I tell my students, the most important lesson that I will teach you today or in this course is that good marketers understand human nature. They may not have taken my evolutionary psychology courses, but they know that sex sells in advertising because of evolutionary reasons. They have a sense of what are the types of endorsers that most people would consider attractive and sexy. So if you create a product, if you create a policy, if you create a program that is antithetical to human nature, it's going to fail. And so if you remember earlier in my lecture today, I talked about communism. The reason why communism fails in the human context is because humans are not a communistic species. Some of us are taller, shorter, harder working, less harder working. So to impose that we should all end up using the equality of outcomes ethos at the same ultimate place because of some misguided sense of empathy. It's unfair when some people have billions and others don't. We should all be at the exact same spot. That is contrary to human nature. So it always is the case that communism is attempted, but it always ends up at the same place because it fails. I'll give you another quick example, which I didn't mention in today's lecture. Romance novels are almost exclusively read by women around the world. If you want to understand what are the types of male exemplars that women fantasize about, do a content analysis of romance novels because that's going to tell you a lot about what women fantasize about. Usually what they fantasize is about a bold, socially dominant, high status male, you know, who wrestles alligators on his six-packs and comes out triumphant, right? And he could only be tamed by the love of this one good woman. I've just described every single romance novel that's ever existed. Well, a few years ago, a progressive company wanted to come out with a line of romance novels where they weren't promulgating toxic masculinity.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted a male who was pear-shaped, who sucks his thumbs, who's got a nasal voice, who watches Bridget Jones' Diary and cries a lot. Guess what female readers said to that? What do you think they said?
They said, we don't want to read that stuff
We don't want to
anymore.
read it, right? So imagine the arrogance of those content creators, those marketers, those romance novel creators. They thought that humans are born with empty slates and we will teach women what they should fantasize about. And women said, no, no, no. We already come with innate male preferences.
Yeah.
And so anytime you create products or policies that are antithetical to human nature, I can assure you what the outcome's going to be. It's going to fail.
We're talking with Professor Godsod, who just got off stage at the Northwest Sanity Forum. And what I think of immediately is the contrast between Bud Light, what happened there, and the contrast with what's happening right now with American Eagle jeans. When you go against nature, we see what happens. When you embrace it, we see what happens also. I got the chance to ask you some questions from the audience. One was about You have all this research proving you're right, proving common sense, proving biology, proving sociology, proving history, proving all this stuff. But what can people do practically to fight back against this? Because it's in our colleges, it's in our corporations, and what I'm worried about is in 2026 or 2028, you're going to see a far left swing back because either people hate Donald Trump or because people are just voting for the socialists with Mamdani, who knows what. What would you recommend to people?
Just be involved. There's really, it sounds like it's a cliche, it sounds like it's a throwaway prescription, but it really is as simple as that. As I mentioned during my Q&A period with you, most people have a sense that my little voice is not going to matter. I'm not Joe Rogan, I'm not Elon Musk, I'm not some fancy professor. How is my voice going to matter? But the reality is, your voice matters within whatever sphere of influence your life dictates, right? So if you're sitting at a pub with a few of your friends and somebody says something that you think is completely objectionable, take the opportunity to engage them. It could still be a friendly interaction, right? You don't have to be a bastard. You don't have to be cantankerous and impolite to engage people. Just don't always walk away from an opportunity to defend these foundational principles. Your professor says something that you think is terribly incorrect. Raise your hands and challenge them. Don't do a paper and espouse all of the nonsense that your professor told you, because at least that will allow me to get an A. It is better to live with dignity for 5 minutes than to live as a fraudulent coward for 500 years. So just speak out. The rest will take care of itself.
In the last few minutes, we have Professor Gad Saad, who is joining us at the Northwest Sanity Forum here in Renton, Washington. You talk about college campuses. You talk about how Canada's 10 years ahead of where the U.S. is in terms of its progressivism and what can go wrong. Can our college institutions be saved, and should people send their kids to these college campuses?
Our universities could be saved. If I didn't think so, then I would be wasting a lot of effort and time. I could just be retiring in Bermuda, where I just came back with this glorious
You got
tan.
great color. It's gorgeous. It's amazing. Yeah.
That's just the genes of being from Lebanon.
Yeah.
But the reality is that most people in universities are not the blue-haired Taliban, right? But it is the blue-haired Taliban that keeps the rest of us in check, right? It's a small minority that dictates what the rest of us can say, do, act, feel. And so all you need to do is make sure that your kids are not wasting your hard-earned money and spending $80,000 on tuition studying fields that are not going to elevate their intellect. So you could study Shakespeare, you could study art history, you could study neuroscience, but it has to be wedded to reason, to logic, to common sense. So be strategic in identifying the schools that promulgate this ethos, and hopefully the rest will take care of itself.
Professor Gad Saad, thank you so much for joining us today. Your remarks made me feel every inch of the credits I'm missing from college and studies. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Cheers.
Really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Cheers.
We got a whole lot more to tell you about, coming to you live from the Northwest Sanity Forum here in Renton, Washington. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. It is time to feel good as we wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And before we get to our good news giveaway, there's some messages I took away from the Northwest Sanity Forum, which was over the last 2 days in Renton, Washington, put on by our friends over at Future 42, the people behind Let's Go Washington. Brian Haywood, Steve Gordon did an amazing job at this event. It really was a recharging the batteries event where we feel very, very lonely in Washington, and we feel like there's no conservatism, we feel like there's nothing we can do, and we feel like there's no common sense. But there are things we can do. So here are my takeaways from the Northwest Sanity Forum, and I hope they inspire you as much as they inspired me. So first, the stories that start here make national policy. Look at some of the things that have been done. For example, they're saving the Snake River dams because of how stupid Jay Inslee's climate policies were. Look, a guy like Chris Rufo, who started here by running for Seattle City Council, he's now the one cleaning up the Department of Education. There are so many stories, the anti-police stuff we've covered here, autonomous zone, the stuff with federal agents, what they can do against Antifa, what they can do about rioters, over and over and over and over again. The speakers I interviewed said they came here because they want to bring their message, but also how much of the stuff that we talked about on the show, that we broke here on the show, had actually made it their way to them, and they created policy that reached the White House. So when you think to yourself, I'm only sharing an article, only my friends are seeing it, the more people that share these articles, the more people that talk about these insane stories, the more you talk about these stories with your neighbors, the more this stuff goes viral, the more you can shape policy as well. I'm not saying that so I get more clicks. I'm saying that because you catch the attention of people who can do something about it. So when these things happen, email me, be in touch with us, talk about them, ari@kvi.com, and maybe that way they can grab some national attention. Also, here's something else, the ideas that you get from out of town. So, for example, a lot of us, we see something that's happening in another city. We go, we want to do this for our church. We want to do this for our synagogue. Why can't it be the same way with politics? Corey DeAngelis, who we interviewed earlier on the show, he came in talking about, hey, here's the stuff we could do with school choice. Here's the stuff in the One Big Beautiful Bill. Here's the stuff we could do that, even if you live in a blue state, it won't be opted in. That's stuff I didn't know before. That is stuff I did not know. And those are takeaways, useful takeaways that I can use here on the show. Something else. Washington is worth fighting for. A lot of us are resigned to, I'm stuck here. My job's here, my family's here, and things are so bad. No. Yesterday, this thing was in the Renton Hyatt. The Hyatt right on the waterfront. It's got a fancy name, but the Hyatt on the waterfront is gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. And it's got windows everywhere, and it looks out right on Lake Washington. There's a dock in the back of the property. Beautiful place to have a wedding, by the way. You can rent jet skis out there. It's right near Gene Coulon Park. It's beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. And every speaker who I spoke to, my booth was set up right there. So I got some lousy video because the sun was killing my video. But at the same time, I got every single speaker I spoke to, every single person who came to town, looked out over that water and go, now I know why you stay here. Now I know why you fight so hard for this. This is why. Even people from Washington who had never seen Lake Washington before because they live in other parts of Washington. They came in from the east side to be part of this, whatever the case may be. And they said, this is why we fight for this place, because look how majestic, look how beautiful it is. So there's that one. Last takeaway from this conference, which is you need to help. Every single person, including the well-known national speakers to the local activists, every single person who was on that stage started on that stage because somebody sent them down the road to being activated, to being an activist. Me and Chris Rufo ran for Seattle City Council because we had problems with the homeless. We had problems with what was going on. We ran for Seattle City Council. He withdrew. I lost. But look where we are now. Look what we do now. Corey DeAngelis wanted to make better school. So he got involved, and look what happened. Godsad escaped from Lebanon, saw what was going on college campuses, didn't want it coming here. And he talked about that. Michael Schellenberger was a Democrat, saw what was going on in the streets of San Francisco, and got activated. Jonathan Joe saw what was going on in mainstream media, saw what was going on in the streets of Seattle. Look what he's brought attention to. They're literally changing homeless policy because of his work in the White House. You have to do it too, and you need to step up as well. And there were so many people there who just said, oh, I'm so inspired. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go do that. School boards, whatever it is. You can do the exact same thing. What a great event put on by Steve Gordon, and everybody over Future 42. Before I forget, your chance to win fantabulous prizes. Today we're giving away a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card. Daniel's Broiler has been a Seattle favorite since 1980. Check out danielsbroiler.com to reserve a table, place your takeout, delivery order, and more. We're also giving away a copy of 7 Steps to a Successful Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs. Visit madronafinancial.com for more information and discover how you can create a rooted wealth plan today. All you have to do in order to win these fantabulous prizes is be caller number 10 at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Caller number 10 will win a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card and a copy of 7 Steps to a Successful Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs. Phone lines are open now. Give Mike a call for your chance to win at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. And get out there today and enjoy the weather, because I keep seeing clouds every now and again, which means the summer's starting to come to an end and we're losing those 8 o'clock sunsets, my friends. Get out there and enjoy the weather. That's going to do it for us today. But fear not, my friends, we'll be back tomorrow with more insane stories, more exciting guests, and, of course, more giveaways. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.